Hi, Phil Hinkle here from proDAD. Today we have a tutorial for you on the newly released Mercalli SAL for Mac. A great program to stabilize your footage and fix basic CMOS distortion problems. Let's dive in and see how the new program works. First thing we need to do, obviously, is have some files to work with. I can come up here if I want and click on File and Import, or hit Command O. But I've got some files right here I want to work with, so I'm just going to come down, highlight them all, and just drag them up. Very simple, and you can see them load into my media bin. Okay, we now have 5 or 6 files here to play with. So let's walk through some of the features and let me show you some. First, on the left, you've got a media bin with all of your clips. You've got a progress bar of how much you're working with. So as we set ins and outs, you will see this change to a smaller piece of orange, so you can kind of see the area of your clip that is being worked with. First thing I'm going to do is take my first clip. It has a red box around it, meaning it's active. And as you notice, this is a vertical video. You can also see over here that it has been rotated 90 degrees because it sensed that it was vertical video. If it had been a regular video, it would have come in like this. And say you have a video where your action camera is hanging underneath something, maybe on the bumper of your car or a motorcycle or even a RC plane or even a full-scale plane, and it's upside down and you didn't correct it in the camera, all you got to do is come up here and you could set that to 180 and it would just flip the video. For this one, obviously we need it at 90 degrees so the vertical video works. I don't really want to mess with this clip. I just wanted to show you how you can rotate your clips. So no matter what orientation you have your camera in, you will be able to get it in the right orientation to be correct for viewing. So that's a nice, cool, little easy to get to feature. I'm going to click on the X and that will get rid of my file. Okay, now let's dive into some stabilization and see how all of this works. First thing I'm going to do is, on my first clip, I want to find the section I want to use. We've got a timeline down here and we can scrub through that. We can just move our mouse along the timeline and you'll see the footage update based on my mouse position. So I'm going to find a spot where this guy has jumped out of the plane, and I know we've got the horizon over here on the left and you can see him real good. I'm going to stop my cursor right there and I want that to be my endpoint. There's a couple ways I can do it. I can grab the left side here and slide it over, or with my cursor in position, if I hit the I key on my keyboard, it sets an endpoint just like that. Now I drag my cursor to where I want my out point to be. Let's work with about 10 seconds of that clip. Right about there, you can see right here is how much endurance this particular clip has, and this is our in and out point. So if I come through here, we can see that endurance or the duration changing. I'm going to click right there to put my cursor in place and hit the O key. Have my in and out set. Now if we wanted, we could just go analyze this clip, but we can do even more than that with Mercalli SAL for Mac. First thing I want to do is over here on the right, see where it says camera optics? If I click there, it says no camera selected. I know this shot was from a Sony, and it was a 4K shot, so it was the FDR X1000V. So what Mercalli does is it uses the optics from that lens that we have profiles for. It does the best job it can based on that lens geometry to stabilize your footage and retain as many pixels as possible. Now if I wanted to, I can click here on remove fisheye warp. Nothing happened right now, but after we analyze the clip, you'll see the fisheye is gone and our horizon will be straight. There's also CMOS correction levels up here. There are 3 options to pick from. There's none, a quick repair, and a vibrations and wobble. Mercalli SAL Mac includes 2 levels of CMOS distortion correction. The quick repair option can fix videos with just a tiny bit of jitter at the edges, maybe something like a drone video got pushed around by the wind. And the vibrations wobble setting will take moderate jello caused by vibrations. Maybe your camera's hard mounted to an engine or something like that that caused some basic vibrations and wobble. So it can do some basic CMOS corrections, and it does it amazingly well, as we're going to see in a little bit. This particular clip, I know, does not really need CMOS correction. It's just a shaky video. If I play this, you can see it's just got a lot of shake in it. There's really not any CMOS wobble or vibrations in there that we got to worry about. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to leave this on none because I don't really need one of these two levels of CMOS repair. So let's leave that alone. One other option up here, the stabilization profile. There's an Action Cam and an Intella Universal. I tend to stay on the Intella Universal by default. The program does a really good job of just knowing what to do. Feel free to experiment with that Action Cam setting, but for my use, and I've been using Mercalli on the PC for many years, and just the standard default setting there usually does the trick 95% of the time. So for our test today, we're going to leave that setting. Okay, we've got that done. Now if I wanted to, I could just click Analyze Clip, and you will see an analyzation box come up. You can see the progress here, how long it's going to take, and it's just analyzing camera movement. Okay, it's done stabilizing. Couple things we can notice. Our horizon right here, remember how curved it was? It's now nice and straight, and everything looks wonderful. If I turn off the remove fisheye, you can see my horizon comes back and I get more of my footage back. That's because Mercalli, in any software, when you remove fisheye warp, there has to be some cropping, there has to be some zoom involved in the process. Mercalli limits that to the minimum needed, but if you just don't want the fisheye, you can turn it on and it will get cropped a little more. You will lose a little bit more resolution, but you can remove that. I'm going to leave that with the fisheye warp turned off. Now let me show you a few other features we have here in Mercalli. First is the source. We can see the original source footage. There's an option for analyzed, which means it's been stabilized. The fisheye is gone. We can get a vertical compare where we can compare fixed to unfixed. You can see over here there's a Mercalli watermark that shows you that's the side that has been processed. It's kind of hard to see the straightened horizon and the difference in the video there, but if I click on horizontal, then it splits my screen horizontally, and you can see the difference in the imagery and in the footage based on the fixes. If we want to, we can come up here and click on View and see source video is a B, analyzed is A. We can see our keyboard shortcuts right here, and we could click between those if we wanted to by hitting B and V and A and H for horizontal. So we're going to stick with our analyzed and leave it just as it is. One thing to note, if you were to do a horizontal vertical compare, when you go to export your footage and make your final files, you're going to get the vertical compare with the little watermark in the corner. It's great for previewing your footage and showing people the potential and possibility of what may come out of it. Then you just go back, re-render it again, stick it on analyzed, and you're good to go. There are lots of options along the side here. They do different things. There's a pan shot smoothing, and there's a roll balance. By moving, let me go back to analyze there. By moving the pan shot smoothing, you can see my footage zooms in a little bit here and there. And by doing the same with the roll balance, it will also move around a little bit based on roll. Okay, the pan is fixing side to side movements. The roll is fixing rolling movements this way. Okay, by increasing this number, you are cropping your image more. You are losing some of your resolution, but it's giving Mercalli more room to shift your picture around and give it a more stable shot. So sometimes you need the stabilization. Sometimes you need some stabilization, but you want to maintain as much resolution. In those cases where Mercalli comes out within its default calculations after the analyzation is usually a pretty good spot, and most of the time my experience has been I just leave those settings the way they are and just export and go. But every now and then I'll find a clip that's challenging, and I will use some of these features to clean that up. Avoid border is basically your zoom or your scale. You can zoom in more and more and more and more if you want, and that will also give Mercalli more or less room to work on the stabilization. But keep in mind, the better stabilized and the more you zoom in, the less pixels you're going to have from your original content. So if you were filming in 1080, you can get pretty easy down into the lower resolution you may not want to go to. Okay, our footage is ready to go, but let me show you one other little trick in Mercalli. If I turn off my fisheye warp, my best resolution setting is set here, but if I change that to best stabilization, watch what happens at this particular spot in my clip. I've got a little bit cut off my screen here. I got a big chunk cut off here. What's happening is you're seeing the borders of where Mercalli can fix things and where it's struggling and it doesn't have enough resolution to clean that up. So what you could do is you could scale that in if you wanted to, but there's another little trick, and in this clip it actually works pretty well, is if I click on this video color filling, which is turned on by default with best resolution. If I click on that video color filling, watch what happens. It takes the area around that spot and fixes it. Now you tell me, when you're watching this clip in real time, would you notice that this is a fixed spot, or would you know that that sky was fixed? So there are clips, and this is a good candidate, where maybe by turning on best stabilization you're going to gain a few extra pixels, get more resolution, and turn that video color filling on, and your viewer is never going to know anything was going on. So it's a cute little trick that works really well. You've got a scale option. You can scale stuff up and down. It's very similar to the avoid border. Dynamic scaling is an interesting option. What happens is, in the process of stabilizing, certain amounts of cropping have to happen to give Mercalli the room to stabilize your clip. Well, if you've got a lot of movement, it's going to need more cropping. So what dynamic scaling does is it slowly ramps up how fast the zoom is reacting to your stabilization. It's giving it some fudge factor there, so that as it scales up the movement, you're slowly zooming in to your footage, cropping in, so you don't notice it as a viewer. If you push that scaling number up, it becomes a lot tighter, and you will actually start to see the scaling bouncing around based on the zoom level. Again, my experience has been Mercalli 95% of the time just nails the dynamic scaling number right out of the box on its own analyzation. So I hardly ever touch that, but there have been a few clips I've worked on in the past that I have used that on, and it actually did help the clip. Keep camera dynamic. What that does is it tells Mercalli that by keeping the camera dynamic, yes, I know there's movement there. I don't want it perfectly rock solid like it's on a tripod. There's got to be some organic movement there. So it just takes your movements and slows them down and makes it look natural, as opposed to really messed up, in my opinion. So that's another one of those features. I don't know that I've ever turned that off, but there might be an instance where you need it. And there's also a zoom X and Y axis balance. What that does is it allows you to determine how much on each of those axes Mercalli is going to move, zoom, crop, whatever it needs to do to give you the best stabilization. So that's pretty much all I'm going to show you on this particular clip. I've walked through bunches of these options, so now we're going to go through a little bit quicker on some of these other clips, show you a few more features, and get them all analyzed. We analyzed this clip by clicking the Analyze button that showed up right here. We're going to do all the rest and let them happen all at one time. I'll show you how that works. My next clip is, once again, a 4K clip. And this one is some friends of mine went out on a holiday excursion on their all-terrain vehicles. So I sent a Sony 4K action cam with them, and they got some footage for me. And if I play this, you'll see how really bad this footage is. Let's get it to a point where they're moving. Okay, I'm hoping the screen capture software is catching this in good fluid motion. You can see there's lots of issues. There's CMOS problems, there's stabilization, there's just all kind of things wrong with that clip. So let's see what Mercalli can do for that. I think that's a pretty good starting point there. Yeah, we'll back that up just a tiny little bit, hit my end point. Whoops, my cursor moved, you see that? So I put it in the new spot, there's my end point. And I think I want to get about that far in right there by that sign. I'm going to hit my out point with O on the keyboard, and we have that clip ready to process. Before we move on to our next clip, let's come up here. I know this one has got bad, so I'm going to pick the second level of CMOS correction because this particular clip needs it. All of these clips from here on are going to need the higher level CMOS correction, so I'm just going to pick that vibration wobble on each one. Again, this camera was the Sony FDR X1000V, and yes, this one has fisheye, so I want that to be gone as well. I'm going to click on that. Okay, this clip is ready. So let's go down to our next clip. Very simple to do. This particular clip you can see is just crazy. It's a guy in a gyrocopter, which is pretty cool. I wish I could go for a ride, but see that wobble in there? That's CMOS problems, and Mercalli is going to fix that right up. Look at his camera, how bad it shakes right there. I'm going to back that up a little bit and hit my in button. For I for in, we have our endpoint set. I'm just going to pick a spot just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to put my cursor right there. I'm going to select O for out point. We have our camera set. This was a GoPro. I'm not sure exactly which one. Oh, let's set that. This was a GoPro. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. I think it was a 3. And there doesn't appear to be much fisheye in there or warp, so I'm going to select the 3 narrow option. Again, I'm going to select my vibrations and wobble, and that particular clip is set. Now here's a clip that was a lot of fun to make, if you can pardon my face there. I had some friends with RC cars, and we went out to a local quarry, and we put them through the paces to see how Mercalli software could keep up with the really bad stuff we got there. I'm going to set my endpoint right there by pressing I again. Now watch this when I play the clip. Look how bad this is. That is pretty hard to watch, if I do say so myself. Okay, I found a spot where I want to end my clip. It's right there. Okay, now instead of setting an out point there, I want to grab some more footage later on in this clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split the clip into 2 pieces by hitting S. S on my keyboard, or if I come up to edit, I can split it right there. And again, you can see your keyboard shortcuts by popping the drop down menu, and there they are. So I'm back down here. I've found the spot where I want to end that clip. I'm going to hit the S key. And you can see now over here my media bin, I've got 2 clips for this particular GoPro footage. One has this tiny little orange section, which is my in and out that I just set, remember? Right here. Okay, that's that section. And this is from the end of that clip on for the rest of my clip. So let's find another spot I might want to mess with. Let's see, right in here looks like some more driving fun. So I'm going to set my cursor right here on this one. Now for this particular endpoint, I'm just going to come down here, grab the edge just to show you a different way of doing things. Hit the play button, and that looks like a good spot right about there to stop. Right about there. Going to come to the edge and drag back over, and I've got my out point set. Now you can see there's these 2 clips from that particular RC car, and there's a little tiny in and out here and a little tiny section that I'm going to process here. Now before I go on, I forgot to come up here and select my camera. I remember because these were my cameras. This was a GoPro Hero Plus, and I am going to set the vibrations wobble to the highest CMOS setting available in Mercalli Mac SAL, and the same thing here, the GoPro Hero Plus, and vibrations wobble. Okay, we are down to 1 clip left to process. Nothing spectacular to show you functionality wise. I'm just going to find the spot I like. This was actually a friend of mine who has a helicopter. He invited me out. He has a camera box on it, so I stuck one of our cameras outside his camera box that was all stabilized, and we got to film some really cool things like flying over the Philadelphia Phillies baseball stadium. And you can see there's some real bad CMOS issues. So I'm going to come back here. That's about where it was really bad. I'm just going to hit my I for in, and we just about are over it about right there. Looks like a good place to stop. This was recorded on the GoPro Session 4, or the GoPro Hero 4 Session 1080 wide. Again, on this clip, I want to remove my fisheye warp. These two clips had some fisheye warp in them, but because they are so bumpy, and I really am not too terribly offended by what I'm seeing in here as far as the warp goes, I'm going to leave those without the fisheye warp repaired so I can get the most pixels remaining on my footage. But back to our clip flying over Philly, I believe we've got everything set. Okay, if I wanted to, I could come into each clip and click Analyze like I did here. Or if I come up to my menu bar up here at the very top, there's a button called Analyze. If I click that, then I can now see all of the clips, including the one that I split twice. See the two different RC car clips, and it shows you where they're at on the timeline and all the details and data on it. If you decided one of those you didn't care about, you could uncheck it if you wanted. So I'm going to leave that checked. All right, it's time to analyze these clips. So I'm just going to click the Analyze button and let it do its thing. Okay, our analyzation is just wrapping up on our last clip. Okay, everything is pretty much completed as far as the functionality of making Mercalli for the Mac SAL do its thing. It's time to export our footage. This is a very simple operation. We come up here to Export, and we get another little pop-up window. Lots of options in here of things to do. We can export as a QuickTime movie, an MPEG-4, an Apple M4V. I'm sorry, I've work a lot on a PC at my day job, and I'm very used to MPEG-4s, so I don't know, I just have that in my head and I like to select those. But you could do JPEG video, you can do Apple M4V. QuickTime Movie will be very high resolution and high bit rate, so you'll have some really large files. But if you're editing them in another editor and doing something really serious, that's probably the way to go. For our purposes and to save some space, I'm just going to select the MP4s in H.264. The output path, if I click on the folder, I can change my output path. So what I'm going to do on my desktop, I've got files for export, and here are some of my raw files. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a new folder called Finals. And we are now going to export into our Finals folder. If I wanted to, I could come down to here as well and call this Skydiving. ATV, I must make that capitals. This is Gyrocopter, so I'm just going to call it Gyro. And RC Cars, I'm just going to call it RC. I don't think I want to export this second one. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm just going to uncheck that and it won't export that clip. And this is from Philadelphia, so I'm going to call it Philly Flyover. Now when I select export, it's going to export the clips that I have left checked to MP4s in the desktop Finals directory. So I'm going to click export, and it's going to do its thing. Again, you'll get progress bars showing the progress, and when they're all done, we will come back and see what our content looks like. Okay, our exports are all done, so I'm going to click the Done button, and I'm going to minimize Mercalli and go to my desktop, and I have a folder here, a little bit off screen, let me drag it on, called Finals. Okay, let's look at a couple of these clips. Remember that ATV clip? Let's see how it looks. Let me size it down just a bit so you can see it. And I hit the play button. Look how much better the right side is than the left. Is it perfect? No, but it is greatly improved, much more watchable. Next clip, let's try that gyrocopter. Remember how bad that thing was? Now check it out. Even though part of it's off the screen, you can see on the right it's smooth as silk. The left is bouncing all over the place. Let's close that one. Now remember those RC cars. Let's open that clip up, And let me size that down a bit so you can see it on the screen. And here we go. Watch this. Look how much better the right side is compared to the left. The right side is now watchable. It's not perfect, but it is much improved, and you could actually use this in a video without making your viewers get really sick. So I wanted to show you just some of the quality there of the exported product and how it looks. That's really all there is to Mercalli SAL for Mac program. There are other options in here. Feel free to explore. As you can see, it's very simple, very straightforward, and very easy to learn. So you'll be up and running in no time. So that pretty much covers it for the Mercalli SAL for Mac.